Welcome, everyone. My name is Kristen Hemmerich. I'm a vice president at CALE, and I've been working with the Energy Providers Coalition for Education for a few years now. My focus is on adult education, helping colleges welcome adult learners back, and helping to build the talent pipeline and the workforce in different sectors and in different regions. And I welcome you today. I would also like to introduce my colleague, Bridget Strickler from EPCE.
Thanks, Kristen. Great to be here with everybody. I'm also vice president at CALE and I work on the EPCE team. My background is in employer and education provider partnerships, and we're really excited to have our friends here from Excelsior today. So these are going to be our featured guests, and you're really going to get a taste here. You're in for a treat of just some cutting edge things that are happening in the industry with small modular reactors, and we can't wait to hear from our experts. So this is our agenda. So we're going to provide you just a real quick overview of EPCE for those of you who are kind of new to knowing us. We're going to review over our institutions and programs quickly, and then we'll get on to our featured presenters from Excelsior. So what is EPCE? So EPCE is what we call an industry and education partnership, and it's really all about providing high quality industry informed programming to folks that are working in the energy industry and want to sharpen their skills, advance their skills, and grow their career. And so we were founded almost 25 years ago. We'll be celebrating that 25th anniversary next year. So we've been doing this. We were online before online was cool. And everything is, like I said, is standardized and informed by industry experts. So we're really striving to be the go-to resource for folks who are looking for online education opportunities in the energy sector. And this slide here just lets you know that you're part of something that's pretty big and pretty special. We have all kinds of employers, small, medium, and large, from all over the country. And we really are excited about our members and serving our members well. Over to you, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Bridget. So one of the focuses at our parent company, CALE, the Council for Adult Experiential Learning, who runs the EPCE Coalition, is that we are really focused on adult learners. And so the 4 colleges that we work with through the EPCE Coalition are also focused on adult learners. The content that they have is available 24/7 in asynchronous format, meaning you can do the homework at a time that suits you, but there's still a faculty member involved to engage with you and provide you feedback. And a lot of the coursework, there are workplace examples. So you're not making up imaginary scenarios. You've had a lot of workplace experience, and a lot of that will be relevant in the coursework that's going on. They're all, our 4 schools are all regionally accredited institutions, which is really important when you think about ever transferring from a 2-year to a 4-year or on to your master's degree. So that's really important to us. And our 4 institutions accept transfer credit and offer credit for prior learning. So if you're familiar with credit for prior learning, that is the way that you can earn credit for what you've learned outside of a classroom. And that might be a Microsoft certificate that you've earned that your institution will grant you 3 credits for in IT, in IT 100, a database class. So it is potentially, it is possible that you may be able to earn credit for what you've learned outside of the classroom. And these 4 colleges have people who will help you determine that. If you have questions about credit for prior learning, there are other ways like portfolios. Drop a note in the chat and I can reach out and talk to you about it, because that's something that I have been working with here at CALE for many years. Let me just check their chat. Okay, I'm good. We can move on, Bridget. So I'm sorry, a lot of feedback. So can all of our speakers go on mute right now? That would be great. Thank you so much. So our curriculum is from, as I mentioned, the 4 institutions. Can you go to the 4 institutions slide really quickly, Bridget? From Bismarck, Clemson, Worcester Polytechnic, and Excelsior University. And then if you could go back to the other slide, thank you so much. So all of our courses and coursework are focused on the energy industry or around the energy industry. So we've got nuclear power technician, power generation, electrical power, engineering, power systems management, but we also have wastewater, smart grid, and renewable energy. And don't worry about having to take a screenshot of this. This will be included when we send out the PDF of the entire deck. Okay, you can go on to the next. And I'm sorry, go one more. So I'm going to do a quick overview of 3 of the 4 schools, but of course our featured guests today are from our 4th school, Excelsior, and they will talk more about the programs that they offer. So Clemson University has 2 programs that are a part of the Energy Providers Coalition, which means that if you enroll in them through EPCE, you will receive discounted tuition. They have a renewable energy certificate and also a BS in electrical engineering. And our second partner is Bismarck State College. They are a polytechnic institution. They are on-site and online, but the programs that they offer through us are completely online. You can go to the next slide. Our 2 featured programs from Bismarck are the electrical power technology and the nuclear power technology, but they have several others, both on-site and online. Next slide. I will be able to send you this deck, so you'll be able to email any of the assistant deans there. But most importantly, if you're interested in knowing more about Bismarck, we are doing a webinar featuring Bismarck faculty in December, on December 10th. They're going to show you some of the simulations that they use in their online classes as part of their webinar. So if you'd like to sign up for that webinar, I'm just going to go ahead and drop that in the chat right now. If that works, there you go. So that's so you can go ahead and register for next month's webinar. The third and final school that I'm going to talk about today is Worcester Polytechnic Institute. They offer master's degrees through the EPCE program, power systems engineering, power systems management, electrical and computer engineering, MS, and also Master of Engineering. They have some requirements, statement of purpose, letters of recommendation, and a resume, and of course, any transcripts from previous universities that you will have attended. If you have questions about them, Alexandria is our contact there, A. Hellman at wpi.edu. They did a webinar with us last month, and if you missed it, go ahead and drop me a chat, drop me your email, and I can go ahead and send you a link to that chat, to that recording, so you can hear more about WPI. So those were the 3 schools. I tried to get through them pretty quickly because I want to give a lot of time to our featured guests from Excelsior faculty. So now we are going to stop our sharing and we're going to hand this over to Bernard Austin. Bernard, thank you so much.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bernard Austin. I am the Associate Director of Partnership Development at Excelsior University. We have an exciting presentation for you all today. Before I introduce the faculty members, I wanted to provide some information about Excelsior University for everyone. Founded in 1971, Excelsior University is a nonprofit institution dedicated to expanding access to higher education for adult learners. With a mission focused on empowering students through flexible, career-focused learning pathways, Excelsior has earned a strong reputation for its innovative online degree programs. Excelsior University is accredited by the Middle State Commission, and many of its programs carry additional industry-focused accreditation. The access partners have for their employees in gaining quality skills makes relevant education both a reach for members and the partners, especially those who want to meet current demands and future professional needs. Excelsior University provides numerous benefits for partner organizations, particularly those focused on upscaling and upskilling their workforce in fields that demand advanced skills and knowledge. Through our partnership with EPCE, organizations can offer their employees access to Excelsior online degree programs at a discounted tuition rate, the university transfer credit policies, and credit for experience programs make it easier for employees to receive credit for previous work and academic achievement, thereby reducing the time and costs required to earn a degree. The university offers associate's, bachelor's, and master's degree across fields as technology, healthcare, business, public service, and liberal arts. Designed with business working professionals in mind, Excelsior programs are accessible, affordable, and support for diverse students' backgrounds, particularly those balancing work and family commitments. Now I will introduce James Tippy, the Department Chair of IT and Cybersecurity, to begin today's presentation.
Thank you, Bernard. If you'll move to the next slide, we'll get started. So we're going to start the conversation talking about the challenge of power in data centers by 2035. Smart appliances, IoT, Internet of Things devices have become everyday fixtures in our increasingly connected world, from refrigerators that track our groceries to voice assistants that respond to our needs. The Internet of Things has seamlessly integrated into our lives, generating immense amounts of data. Every new smart device and connected appliance adds to the vast network of data flow through data centers, demanding storage, processing, and instant access. Meanwhile, we add on artificial intelligence. It's evolving at an unprecedented pace. Generative AI and machine learning models are advancing faster than expected, driving exponential growth in data processing needs. These AI technologies, once confined to specific industries, are now woven into nearly every sector, requiring massive computational power to support the continuous learning, adaptation, and real-time decision-making. As organizations increasingly shift from on-premise to cloud-based solutions, global access to data and services is easier than ever. This convenience, however, does come with a cost. Data centers must now operate 24/7, processing and storing vast volumes of information. The demand for energy efficiency, scalable infrastructure is critical that we keep up with this relentless expansion. Next slide. If we look back over the last 18 years or so, we'll see smartphones have revolutionized how we connect with each other and the world. But as we fast forward to today, it is no longer just our phones that keep us online. Our watches, home appliances, cars, even industrial equipment are now part of this vast interconnected web that's constantly generating data and requiring storage. This evolution has transformed us into a hyper-connected society, and while the benefits are immense, the costs are also equally substantial. If we take a moment and reflect on the last decade, we'll see that the connectivity has exploded. And if projections hold true, we're only barely scratching the surface. We see on the chart here that we are going to grow even faster over the next 10 years. Empowering this connectivity brings with it a challenge of building and maintaining infrastructure needed to sustain it. Our digital world grows with every new connection, but each addition asks us to consider the sustainability of our innovation and the energy footprint that ever-expanding universe. Next. As we journey deeper and further into the age of connectivity and automation, the cost of innovation and computational power is becoming a pressing reality. The rapid expansion of digital services fueled by cloud computing, AI, edge technology, Internet of Things, and the interconnected world of these devices is set to drive data center energy consumption to an unprecedented levels. We see here in the chart that it's growing, right? Imagine that it's 2035. The digital landscape has transformed. Our lives are interwoven with AI-driven processes, cloud-based services, and smart devices that operate around the clock. However, this utopia of technology comes at a price. The current projections show that data center energy consumption will increase by 300% by 2035 as we continue to reshape our energy needs. While strides in energy efficiency, such as advanced cooling technologies, improved power usage efficiency, offer hope, it's not the complete solution. Even as these advantages, total energy consumption is forecasted to rise due to the massive scale of operation. Sustainable solutions are no longer a choice, but a necessity. the real cost of our digital transformation has become clear. A monumental increase in the energy demand that underscores the urgent need for sustainable infrastructure. We must balance the growth of the technology with the planet's resources, innovating new ways to preserve our environment while meeting society's expanding digital needs. Next. Here we see a current breakdown of data center energy consumption. The slide clearly shows us that North America is leading in usage with about 40% of the overall demand. The US is using 2% of the overall power produced within the US, produced in powering data centers. While 2% sounds like a small number, consider this, that the state of Missouri is also using about 2% of the nation's energy. So data centers in the US are using the equivalent of a state to function currently, and we're projecting a 300% increase in that data usage over the next decade. This could greatly impact our ability to innovate, our ability to continue to use our AI and connected devices, both personally and industry-wide. Next. As data centers became the backbone of our digital infrastructure, their power challenge is critical. Meeting the rising demands of AI, cloud computing, and Internet of Things isn't just a technical problem. It's essential for the continuity and growth of our digital economy. Without reliable, scalable, and sustainable energy solutions, we risk a disturbance that could reverberate through every industry and every aspect of modern life. Further, we want to continue to use our connected systems. We need to continue to innovate and create new ways of powering them. We must look beyond traditional power sources and embrace innovative solutions to address this. Small modular reactors and renewable energy represent promising pathways forward to provide data centers with the necessary continuous, efficient, environmentally responsible power. By tackling these challenges proactively, we can build a resilient foundation for the future of our digital connectivity and ensure that our data centers are ready to support this expanding needs. Now I'm going to pass it to some of our engineering and other folks to talk more about these small nuclear reactors. So I'll pass it on to Anvish, our department chair for engineering technologies.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. So I'll present some information and some data regarding what are our current energy consumption data looking like, and what is the projection looking like for the next 10 years, and what should we watch out for, and what's the role of nuclear in this process, and how much energy do data centers need in the next 10 years. Next slide, please. So this is the current energy production in United States. On the left plot, we can see that 21% currently, approximately, is the contribution from renewables, 37% from natural gas, 19% from nuclear, and 23% from coal. By 2035, 10 years from now, we are almost reaching 2025. So approximate energy production estimates are as follows: 35% by renewables, 35% by nuclear, 15% by 35% by natural gas, 15% by nuclear, 15% by coal. So nuclear has a reasonable presence by the year 2035. Now, when these estimates were provided, the data center usage, the data center need was not completely taken into account with these projected trends. So the 15% by nuclear could increase to up to 18% by nuclear, because nuclear has a great role to play. So nuclear energy produces around 10 to the power 6 gigawatt hour energy, and in the next slide I'll discuss what this number means and how can we relate to that number, and how much do data centers need. 1,000th of the produced value, so 10 to the power of 3 gigawatt hour energy. Now, the reason I'm discussing about nuclear and the nuclear presence is because my colleague just presented in his slides that we need reliable, we need scalable, and we need environmental friendly energy source for data centers. And nuclear seems to be a path to move on go forward. Next slide, please. So how does a data center look like? What happens in the data center? So it typically looks like this. We have a numerous amount of data storage, processing, and with this, we need power for the processing power, and we also need power for cooling units. So typically this is what it looks like, and energy is mostly consumed by core components such as servers, storage, cooling systems, backup systems, and so on. So there's a lot of power required. Next slide, please. Now, the data center energy growth is projected to grow exponentially. The data that I'm showing here is for the quarter 4 2023, and it's projected to grow almost by 300% by the end of this decade. So I'm giving some numbers here. So how much energy does a data center consume? For example, Google's data center uses enough electricity to power 200,000 homes, which is equivalent to a small city. So 200,000 homes is equivalent to approximately 250 megawatt to 300 megawatt. So taking into account that we need scalable, reliable, environmental friendly, look at the picture on the left, we can see what a microreactor looks like. The capacity would be, the range is between 1 megawatt to 200 megawatt on a semi. If you see the picture in the, if you see the left picture, but the picture in the middle, a small modular nuclear reactor. Now that has a potential capacity range to produce between 20 megawatt to 300 megawatt. So that appropriately fits a need for a data center, like Google's data center. So the estimates suggest that the energy demand from data centers will explode from 17 gigawatt, which is currently in 2022-2023, to 35 gigawatt by 2030. It's almost a growth of 10% per year, and it is expected to increase over the next coming decades. So data centers will require humongous amount of energy going forward, and we need to brace ourselves, and we need to prepare to produce energy to meet that demand. So to put into perspective, 1 gigawatt can power up to 750,000 homes. So the energy required in 2030, which is 35 gigawatts, can power over 26 million homes, which is, to put it in perspective, 3 times New York City homes. So 3 times New York City homes energy demand is what we need by the end of 2030. Next slide, please. So how is industry thinking? Amazon, Google, Microsoft, top players in data centers, they are moving towards nuclear power because they have seen potential in the nuclear power reliability, scalability, and ability to have this environmentally friendly solution. So Amazon is investing $500 million especially in the small modular reactors. Let me emphasize that. Microsoft is doing the same thing. Google is doing the same thing. So nuclear, and especially the small modular nuclear reactors, which my colleague Richard Cole will talk about in the coming slides, will present about what is the small modular reactor and what its role is. So now I'll pass on the baton to my colleague Richard Cole, who is the full-time faculty in nuclear engineering technology. Next slide, please.
So we're really starting to look at the scale. So what does it cost to get to the amount of power that we need? The last two large conventional reactors we brought on in Georgia last year, costs of about $10 billion for a 1 gigawatt power reactor. Small modular reactors are estimated that will be somewhere from 600 million to 1.2 billion. And that cost, because of the fact of one of the big advantages of small modular, of building in factory in mass production scale, those costs are expected to come down. So several small modular reactors should still be more economical to gain that sustainable energy that we're looking for. Another comparison is a large conventional reactor takes about 500 people per 1,000 megawatts reactor for a basic site now from one of those sites, about 500 people to run. Based on the simpler design and the modularity of the small modular reactors and their design, we're looking at a workforce of about half the size to staff small reactors. So there's going to be advantages there of not having to have these extremely large high capitals, where for a small modular reactor that's just the right size to give you a constant, steady, dependable power for a small modular reactor is going to probably be one of the ways that we go in order to solve that. So I think it's going to end up being a combination that we're going to have to build over the next 10 to 15 years of large conventional and small modular reactors. Small modular reactors will probably go more towards specific niches like the data centers. Next slide, please. Now we're going to look a little bit. So what does it take to staff a small modular reactor if you have them at the site? Next slide. So based on Microsoft's projections, they're taking it says it takes about 40 plus jobs during the construction phase. Once the data center is in operations, there's about 27 jobs. If you look at that and the jobs, you see a lot of them are dedicated to IT, security, inventory asset management, but looking at the critical environment team, this is the people who are going to make sure that that data center keeps running. They're the people who make sure the mechanics, the cooling, the electrical, what do you do for your backup power? That's going to take very skilled technicians. What's common to these technicians is those are almost exactly the same skills that you need to operate the small modular reactors or the large scale reactors. So programs that can develop people for data centers, you'll see a lot of interchange. So you could possibly even see some sharing of the skills between the data center and the associated small modular reactor. But the skills are going to be very similar. Next slide. So what kind of jobs will they be? So these are postings that were just posted this week by Amazon Web Services. First one for a data center operations manager. This is the person who's managing the IT side of a data center and getting that together. This is a posting for a job in Oregon. Nice paying job, $128,000 to $150,000. Looking at their basic skills, what they're overseeing, basic qualification, they're going to need a bachelor's degree or 4+ years of technology or military experience in an IT related field. So that's the data center operation side. Then it gets that critical infrastructure side at another data center in Virginia, which is probably where the largest concentration of data centers in the world is right now, is in the Northern Virginia area near DC. They need to be able to understand all of these support services that makes this data center run and keep running dependably. There they say basic qualification, high school or equivalent diploma. I think what you'll find is this is where you start seeing when you get to the management side, while that may be the basic qualification, they want people that understand these systems and the people that maintain them. This is a place where I think you'll see people going like in other technology fields where they find there's a glass ceiling and they'll be looking for a bachelor's degree later on to support that, like in engineering technology, technology management to get into those fields. Okay. Now I'd like to introduce Lori Brady. She's a senior director for HR and workforce development at the Nuclear Energy Institute, and she'll talk about what's the nuclear industry doing to meet some of these needs.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard, for having me. I really appreciate it. So what I want to do is first preface by saying that we looked at this energy demand issue that was discussed previously a couple of years ago, and we decided that we needed to develop what we call a strategic workforce plan to help us deal with the success of nuclear between now and 2050. So I'm going to go beyond the time frame that we've talked about here at 2035, and I'm going to expand that out to 2050, and I'm going to explain to you kind of our approach. First of all, in developing the strategic workforce plan, we have 3 phases. The first phase that we developed and published in October of last year dealt with our current operating fleet, certain supplemental worker positions, and new nuclear. So as I talk today, I'm going to emphasize more new nuclear because those 3 different types of reactors that Richard referred to, the larger, more conventional ones, the small modular reactor types, microreactors, etc., we believe that that's all going to be needed to meet the energy demand between now and 2050. Now, what we don't know is how that's going to disperse. How many are going to be SMRs and what type of SMRs, because what we didn't discuss so far is there's different types of reactors being built, right? And on top of that, how the distribution is going to work out, because each of those have different staffing models. For this conversation, I'm going to mostly focus on SMRs though. So as we developed the strategic plan, we came up with what we consider to be 40 industry-wide recommendations. These are things that no one company or one group can do on their own. And what I'm going to do is isolate the 6 ways that we bucketed those recommendations and how that might apply to SMRs. So the first is career awareness. One of the challenges that we have in nuclear energy is we're not visible. When you're going through school, through K-12, how many times do you hear people talk to you about all the great jobs that are offered in nuclear energy and the types of jobs that may be offered in nuclear energy as we transition to new nuclear? We don't talk about it. More than that, related to SMRs, we have no idea where these are going to deploy, right? So what if we deploy an SMR in the middle of Alaska? Right? How do we pipeline that? How do we get our workforce infrastructure set up? How do we make sure people have the right skills? And by the way, what skills are going to be needed for these jobs, right? Because our skills are transitioning as we get into new types of nuclear. So career awareness and the types of jobs is kind of that first bucket. That second bucket that we're looking at is pipelines. How do we make sure we can train people to take on these jobs? What are those jobs? What skill sets are needed? Making sure our academic programs have the right things in place in order to be able to train to the education that we need for these skill sets. And then making sure that those pipelines are able to thrive as we go up into 2050. I'll go into some examples later if we have time in Q&A about things that we're doing in each of these areas. But I do want to point out that right now we're developing a nuclear energy academic roadmap that is going to identify all the challenges that we see from an academic perspective between now and 2050 so that we can make sure people are appropriately skilled and qualified. Next are training and qualifications. How do we make sure we modernize the way that we look at training in nuclear so that we can get people in quickly and we can get people job ready quickly? So if people come in with a certain set of fundamental skills, let's say a basic IT background as an example, how do we get them to understand the significance of or reskill them or upskill them to be ready to work in one of our nuclear facilities? These are the types of questions that we look at under training and qualifications. We also have policy legislation. What do we need to make sure that we can manage this transition? Employee engagement and retention. One thing that we have to all understand here on this phone call is our demographics are changing significantly in the U.S. As we hit the 2030s, our older workers, age 65 and older, are going to outnumber the number of children in the U.S. So we have an aging demographic population, which means we are going to be competing harder for fewer workers. And so what are our approaches to that? And last but not least, DE&I. how do we make sure that our industry represents our diverse communities? Because right now we're not doing such a good job of that in nuclear. So as we look towards the future, how can we make sure that we establish the right programs and pipelines to make sure we're taking advantage of all the different pipelines that we have out there? So those are the 6 buckets. Those are how we're looking at it. There's very specific and unique challenges associated with new nuclear and SMRs, but I also know that I'm running up against my 5-minute timeline, so I'm happy to take questions at the end about some of the specific things that we're putting in place at a national level and a regional level to help us start putting the foundations in place that we need to get success through 2050. So with that, I'll turn it back to Richard.
Thank you, Lori. We'll now go to Carl Eiler. He's the director of our Nuclear Cybersecurity Institute at Excelsior.
Hello, everyone. Next slide. So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission understands that technology is changing. We're moving away from the water-cooled reactors, and the whole process for licensing those facilities is changing. Okay, if you go look at the current statistics, there's over 13 plus current and potential applications by 2027 for new reactors, and the technology is changing, and it's going to require new licensing processes, but also a new way of evaluating how these plants are monitored, because technology and cybersecurity is a big threat towards technology. And that's really what's managing these sites. Next slide. So the commission kicked off. This whole process has actually been building since 2020, and they're spending a lot of time with a lot of public proposals. Since 2020, they've had 21 rounds of public review and comments on the preliminary rule language, and that language has been published and it's readily available. And that rule includes a lot of new cybersecurity requirements in there from a risk-based perspective. Next slide. So most of the cybersecurity regulations and processes are built into the physical security and the protecting of the plant. The main primary concerns from a security perspective is, how do we make sure that a cyber attack doesn't inadvertently release radioactive material out into the atmosphere, endangering public health. Also, physical security. We have physical locks, cameras, things like identity access. All those things are technology that can be attacked via a cybersecurity attack and compromise. So regardless of the type of plant, they have to have a cybersecurity program focusing on safety, emergency preparedness, and security. And this is by standard cybersecurity practices: continuously monitoring assessments, configuration management, doing vulnerability scans, that what they refer to as defense in depth, and then responding to those cybersecurity alerts. This is true for any industry, but from this, because of the criticality and the potential impact of a breach in a nuclear, this is really a high visibility and a very critical area to put a lot of focus into. Next slide. So just the regulations are changing very, very quickly. As I mentioned, all those 23 different meetings ended up having a proposed rule being published back. They released the proposed rule on March 1st, and it was formally published in the Federal Register this past October, just less than a month ago. So right now that you can review the Federal Register, and you can make comment on those proposed rules between now and the end of the year. Keep in mind that the like I said, this is very standard cybersecurity practices. It's trying to be agnostic to the different technologies that are used in nuclear reactors. And this is an area where there's going to be they're going to need a lot of support from the cybersecurity industry as they mesh with the nuclear group. But that's it for right now on cybersecurity, and I'll turn it back to, I believe, Richard again.
Right. Okay, can you go ahead and go to the next slide, please? So, as I mentioned before, the IAE experience, it takes about 500 to 700 people to staff one of the traditional gigawatt scale reactors. So SMRs will probably be about half. That's really an unknown because we're talking about a lot of factors that go into it, as numbers of reactors, size, which model of reactor it is. So we really don't know what the picture is going to be yet. But we know one way or another, we're going to need a lot of people to do out there and getting power for all the different competing. Data centers really being just one of those pieces when you go to electrification of everything else in our lives, our cars, and what are we going to do there, and converting over to sustainable electricity. It's going to take a lot of people. Right now, we say there's about 80,000 people in the nuclear workforce overall. I would expect that to double or triple over the next 20 years. Besides the people that are leaving, like Lori said, with the age of the workforce. I think it's probably half of the nuclear workforce now could retire within the next 10 years, just on the demographics, what's been happening there. So we're going to need lots of engineers. We're going to need lots of maintenance people. We're going to need nuclear operators. We're going to need people in the nuclear security force. That's actually one of the largest departments at a reactor site, is the security force, to protect that asset, that vital national security asset. So next slide, please. So now I'm going to go more specifically in what's Excelsior doing to help prepare that workforce. So about 40% of the students at Excelsior are either military or veterans. In our nuclear engineering technology program that I work with, I'd say that's probably closer to 80 to 90% of the students are either previously nuclear trained Navy, currently in the Navy, or we have people that are just going through, that are working at power plants now that want to advance. Somebody that needs a degree to move from reactor operator to senior reactor operator, wants to go further into management. So we try to give them the best experience we can to make that conversion from what they're used to with the light pressurized water reactors that the Navy uses to a commercial reactor. So one of the things we've done is we've incorporated, based with the services of a DOE grant several years ago, a simulated pressurized water reactor, very similar to a Westinghouse reactor. We actually use Westinghouse technical specifications in our classes to give our students familiarity with a power plant. So I'm going to start a short video, and I'm only going to play it for a couple of minutes. It's longer, but in the interest of time, we'll stop. But this is our simulator that's running now. You can see in the center, in the gray area, the light gray, you've got the pressurized steam generators, the reactor, and those direct support systems. To the left are many of the other support systems for the reactor. To the right are the secondary systems where you get into the generators, the turbines, the condensers, the feed pumps, the reheaters, all the things that go into making an efficient operating nuclear power plant. Using this simulator, we give the opportunity for our students, in a thermodynamics class, they not only learn the theory of thermodynamics and heat transfer, they get to actually put it into practice then on how does that tie into a reactor? What happens if you change the number of pumps that are running? What happens if you change a heater and stop a heater? What happens if you change the flow through the reactor? What does that do to the overall reactor? They can do those things. So then we do that with the pressurized water reactor. We also, since about a third of the power plants in the nation right now are boiling water reactors, We use an IAEA's generic boiling water reactor simulator that's more simple in nature, so they can't do as much, but it's enough to demonstrate, because boiling water reactor is really different to a person that spent the last 8 to 30 years running a pressurized water reactor on a submarine. You know, just the fact that the rods are on the bottom instead of the rods are coming in from the top is a major difference. You know, and you have boiling there with the reactor, which is something you don't want a lot of, you know, you're working toward. So they're learning those differences to get that familiarity so they have an understanding of plant operations. Then next slide, please. Go ahead and go to the next one. So really preparing, so now we're starting to prepare our students also for the small modular reactors. Right now, there isn't a good simulator out there. So what we do is we give them some videos, things they can do to look at. So go ahead and click on the video. This is one of our modules in one of our courses where we're teaching about the small modular reactors. You'll see that as we do it, we use a combination of videos, reading assignments, some handouts on small modular reactors. And this particular course, we're using the NuScale reactor. So in this one, since we don't really have a model to see it running, they get to see a video of how a basic small modular reactor works. What they do is their assignment is they now do research on the different classes of small modular reactors, like the NuScale that's running here, where you have your control rods at the bottom, you have your reactor going up, making the steam. So they get to see those things in play. And then they look up research on the different types of small modular reactors or micro reactors and do a report out to the other students, and then do a discussion where they talk about the advantages, disadvantages, difference between those different types. You can go ahead and click to the next slide, please. So that's things that we're doing to make it as much hands-on practice as possible for our students. These are Excelsior's online technology programs. This is one of the biggest advantages of Excelsior. I got my bachelor's degree from Excelsior, and that was because it was asynchronous learning back in the 80s when I got mine. It was a place where I could put together my education, what I'd done in the Navy, courses that I had taken at 3 different colleges, and put all that together and got my degree. So I identify a lot with my students because I got all 3 of my degrees while I was on active duty in the Navy. But we can start people out in our associate level programs, go in technical studies. We have concentrations in electrical technology, nuclear and power plant technology. So it's not just nuclear. They could work in any power plant with the basic fundamentals that they'll get, and computer technologies that go across this industry and many other industries. Going from there, they can matriculate into bachelor's level programs, or they can start out in bachelor's level programs. Information technology, network ops, cybersecurity, computer science, technology management. I have a lot of students in the technology management capstone. That's the last course they take before they graduate. I'd say half or more are professionals in the IT field that now they've decided they have to get that bachelor's degree if they're going to go any further in their field, whether it's in private industry or government or in the military. You know, and they also have a specialty then in nuclear technology. So this is getting more into how do you manage technology. So we're training a lot of people to become supervisors and managers in the nuclear and most technology fields, high technology, manufacturing. We have electrical engineering technology, where we also have a concentration in electronics, mechanical engineering technology, where they can concentrate in nuclear engineering, renewable engineering, or robotics, and then our nuclear engineering technology program, which is our largest of the technology programs right now. So we're having a lot of people graduating and getting out, going into the industry. with a lot of good experience, but now they've got some familiarity with what commercial is like, and they've got the fundamental knowledge to be able to go into these positions successfully. Graduate level program currently in cybersecurity, and then graduate certificate programs in cybersecurity operations. So these are all things that can go in, and we're helping people get jobs. And the biggest thing is they can get these studies while they're working at a job now and making a living and raising their families. We cater to the adult learners, and our mission is to serve our learners where they are when they are. And based on my experience, that's why I'm here, is to come back and help other people do that, like Excelsior helped me 40 plus years ago.
Wonderful. Richard, Carl, and Beach, James, Bernard, thank you so much for that. That was incredible. And also to our special guest star, Lori Brady. We really appreciated having that overview of what the NEI is doing. I would like to now open the floor to questions from anyone of our participants. We have a question from Monica. Bernard, I don't know if you can address it. What is the tuition discount for EPCE members?
Yes.
So hi, thanks, Bernard.
Can you?
Yes,
you
I can
guys,
hear you. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. So the question was, what is the discount for EPCE members? Yes. So as of right now, what the discount is with our cost per credit, partners for EPCE members, they save a $75 per credit cost for that. Now, what I also could do for, if you want to know exactly what that look like for the program, as far as if you're going to be transferring credits or not, here's my information where I can provide you with a link to the actual, because we have a designated EPCE partnership page that not only go over the discount, but go over how often that we start our courses, when it's the next start, which is January the 6th, and courses run every 8 weeks, and what is the maximum total of credits you can transfer up to, and how to get started if you wanted to do an evaluation or to apply for an application.
Great, thank you, Bernard. We have another question here from Ariel. Thank you, Ariel. Is there any insight regarding the MBA program offered by Excelsior for those who have a bachelor's in engineering and technology? Ariel, I don't know if you want to give us a little more details here. Are you asking if that is a career path for people or an education path for people, that they go from engineering and technology to an MBA? Because I do believe that I've seen that happen before with EPCE people. Okay, thanks. Kimberly has put a link in here. It talks more about the EPCE partner page on Excelsior. But does anyone have any comments regarding Ariel's idea of going from engineering into an MBA? No.
I can
Okay.
speak up. I mean, I will
Sure.
say that I have seen folks who are looking to obviously go into management. I've worked with semiconductor organizations, and they are going into the MBA program because of the career projection that they're wanting to go in. So those that are looking to go into more management supervisory roles, I'm seeing who have the technical undergraduate degree, but then are going into the graduate degree in areas like the MBA for that reason. Hopefully that answered the question.
I could add that I've had several students that I've done recommendations for that were applying for masters in engineering management or masters in engineering programs, and doing those recommendations, and their degree is fully accredited. That, you know, my degree was fully accredited when I went and I got my master's and doctorate in education. So that's one of the big advantages of Excelsior's programs.
I can also maybe speak on my personal experience too. I actually have an undergrad in computer science, and then I went and got my MBA after. And the reason that I pursued an MBA was because my career was primarily in project, / product management. And I just thought that was, a just a clear path forward for getting a graduate's degree, because, having that engineering background while also mixed with that MBA just kind of gives you that business acumen. It allows you to communicate with different types of stakeholders and, change your language in a way that different audiences can understand. So I think that's what the degree program helped me with.
That is great. Thank you so much, Ivan.
And as far as entry requirements into the MBA program, you don't have to have an undergrad in business in order to go into our MBA program. There are some workshops and things and resources that are available for folks who maybe need a little bit of extra help in a certain area because they don't have that business background. And I also put in the chat the current concentrations that are available for the MBA program with Excelsior.
That's great. Thank you so much. So we have another question here. How many credits are required in the MBA? I don't have that number offhand. I have, transfer credit numbers. So I don't know.
Yeah, the MBA program just moved to 30 credits. And it's 24 core, and then the remainder would be in the concentration.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you have that offhand. They're trying to stump us today, but we remain unstumpable. So we just have a couple more minutes left, but I'd love to see if there are any other questions. Okay, so Jennifer, I had asked a little bit more from Jennifer. She was thinking she was interested in non-technical MBA, so hopefully what Kim pasted in there will give her some ideas of ones that would be a good match for what she's interested in. Okay, well, if anyone has any other questions, I'm going to drop my email in here because I am happy to connect you with any of our excellent faculty members today from Excelsior or Bernard to talk a little bit more about admissions. Thank you all so much for presenting to us. It was a fantastic presentation. We're so thankful to be partnering with Excelsior University. And I thank all the attendees today. We appreciated your time and your engagement. So everyone have a fantastic day.